podcast is a member of WildGamesProductions.com and D20Radio.com.
Welcome to the All-Time Initiative Podcast, the only Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition podcast in Superior Edition.
The Roll for Initiative Podcast, Volume Number 3, Issue Number 108. I am DM Vince, sitting alongside DM Matt.
Hello, everyone.
And the ever-so cleric with blunt weapon, Nick. No, okay, Nick.
Hey, I'm here, and just to let you know, I'm using a ballista.
A ballista? Wow.
Yeah.
Are you backstabbing with it?
No, I'm a cleric. I cannot backstab.
Okay.
If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, this is the podcast, the only podcast that covers the only and original podcast, only covers First Edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Yay!
Huzzah!
Huzzah! And this week, we're going to, since we've got such a lot of emails and voicemails, we're just going to go over them all this week and just answer your questions. Letters to the editor. I think this is number 3, Matt, right?
Yeah, this actually would be 3.
Yes, we're going to get into our mailbag of holding, and we're going to see what you guys have to say.
Yeah.
You know, we had an interesting conversation in my group the other day about bag of holding. Nick, did you bring that up?
Oh, well. Hey.
The question was, in the bag of holding, if you just keep stuffing stuff into it, but let's just say you wanted to pull something out, the players had a problem with, well, wouldn't it be just a random pull like that guy's hat on the cartoon? And my answer to the situation was, no, usually you think of the item and it appears in your hand when you pull it out. But how would you rule that, Nick?
That's how I kind of play it.
Yeah.
If you know what's in that bag of holding, it's like, oh, yeah, I want to get that that gold bar that we found. Yeah, you'll reach your hand in. Oh, look, it's that gold bar.
Yeah, they were arguing, saying it was like Presto's hat from the cartoon. I was like, that's if you find a bag of holding, yeah.
Right.
I hope I wouldn't find that one.
Yeah, that's actually how I play it, too. It's like if you know what's in there, you can find it. Now, though, I'm thinking, what if you had a group of players that were thrown into a large enough bag of holding? What would happen to them?
There's a Knights of the Dinner Table comic that is all about that, called The Bag Wars.
Okay. I'll have to check that out then. Because I'm just imagining them being trapped in this whatever dimension the bag stores the stuff in. And then they'd be walking along and all of a sudden, oh no, duck, it's a suit of armor falling from the sky.
Well, yeah, there's like in the game Hackmaster, there's mega capacity, like bags of holding and such like that you can have like whole villages and such.
It's its own little pocket dimension. It's
basically,
like it's like if there was a Galactus size bag of holding, you could just stuff entire worlds in a bag of holding.
You know what would be really cool is if that you have something like that and you populate this whole bag of holding with like creatures and things, and they start worshiping you.
Yeah.
You open it up, you'd be like in what was it, Men in Black 2? All hail Jay! All hail Jay! Oh, Jay, can you see?
Right. And then when your hand reaches into the bag of holding to pull something out, they're like, oh no, the fickle hand of God comes down and he's taking us to a higher plane of existence.
Yes, exactly.
So a little bit of news going into things. As you all know by now, Wizards of the Coast has released the stuff on PDF again. Yay!
Yay!
And there was much rejoicing.
Yay! You can go to dndclassics.com and you could buy whatever PDF, and I found that they are honoring old orders as well so far.
Woohoo!
Yep. Anything they've released that someone had already purchased way back when, you got your stuff back. So good for them.
Yeah,
and they have lots of good stuff on there already.
Yes, and I'm happy B10 is there because I needed B10.
Yeah, and they, for first edition AD&D, for all you folks, they got Monster Manual 2, Dungeoneer's Wilderness Survival Guide. Yeah. I also highly, highly recommend to get it for first edition. They have Temple of Elemental Evil on PDF for like $9.99.
Yeah, you won't be finding
that's a steal.
Yeah, you won't be finding a $9.99 Temple of Elemental Evil pretty much anywhere unless you bought maybe 2 pages of it.
Yeah, and they got the whole Saltmarsh series on there too. So yeah, U1 through U3. I mean, you could snatch all those up for basically $15 for PDFs.
And then from what I've seen, these are actually really high quality scans, not like the scans from the first time around. So it's actually all searchable, readable, and they look great. There's chaptering in
Indexing?
the PDFs and indexing. And,
You betcha. You got, let's see, adventures. You got Hidden Shrine of Tomoe-chan, Ghost Tower Inverness, Descent to the Depths of the Earth, Vault of the Drow, Against the Giants, Queen of the Demon Web Pits. You got them all.
Yeah. The only stuff missing is the core rule books because they want you to buy those reprints.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I admit it. Another thing I almost forgot. I think it'll be this week that the reprint of Earth Arcana comes out.
Yep.
Is it this week or is it going to be the previous week?
Yes, because remember, when we are podcasters, we time travel.
Yeah.
Actually, yes, it would be. I think it's on the 15th. It gets released, February 15th. So
Yeah, I'm happy too because I'm going to be using the Unearthed Arcana in my group now that we had to split because we got so huge now, the group.
Oh wow. Well, it's just I was one of those unlucky people when I bought mine. The whole binding issue with the Unearthed Arcanas. I'm not sure what it is when they were originally printed in '85. But there must have been like a first or second print run because I don't know which print run I got, but I got the one where the binding is like barely holding the darn thing together.
Yeah.
Mine's still together too, but I'm looking at it. It's still pretty good condition.
Yeah, mine's actually in really good condition too.
I don't know, but I've heard that from a lot of people. Whatever, either they split whatever printer, or there must have been a flaw in the gluing of a particular print run because my binding is like, I mean, it's holding it together, but barely.
Right. Yeah. I thought I had heard something that they tried to do some cost savings when it come to the binding of the Orange Spine books.
I might have, yeah. But my Monster Manual 2 is in fantastic shape. The orange binding on that one.
Mine looks like a truck driver drove over it, man.
My Dungeon Master's Guide, my Player's Handbook, they're all in good shape. So I don't know.
Like 2 books in my collection that look like they're barely touched, and I'm sure you can guess which 2.
Dungeoneers and Wilderness Survival Guides?
Yes.
Yeah, those are literally a dime a dozen. I didn't get much just because I'm a collector and a completist. I had them too. But yeah, and from what I understand, the Unearthed Arcana will have the incorporated errata.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo!
That is official from WotC. They did say the errata will be in there. That was in the one issue of Dragon magazine way back in the day. So no worries there.
All right. So moving along quickly here, another announcement. Archive.org has released all the Dragon magazines, Polyhedrons, the Omni magazines. What else do we have there? Heavy Metal,
Strategic Review, Space Gamer.
Was Dungeon on there yet?
Didn't see Dungeon.
Okay, probably.
But all those that you mentioned, they're all on the archive.org. And
Matt, you could put that link in our show notes, people. I don't know. Is it a long link? I don't know.
It is actually fairly simple. It's archive.org/details/dragon_magazine.
Yeah, and there's many different versions. You got, you can read it online. You got PDF you can download. There's even Kindle version.
Right.
Yeah, we put it up on the forums, and I was like, I don't know how long it's going to be there for, but apparently it's still there.
It's legal.
Yeah.
They've had a couple of other legal battles in the past from some other publishers, and archive.org won.
Yeah.
Because they are a library. They're part of, I guess, the California library system.
Yep.
So
libraries have special rules, and they get to distribute information in spite of copyright at times.
Yes, they do.
But is it like a Lego, yeah, a regular library that you have to borrow it and bring it back, or you can actually keep it?
I think I just know when I was downloading mine that there is some sort of there might be some sort of watermarking process going on in the background.
Oh, okay.
So there is some sort of tracking process. So
I wonder if it has some type of block on it so you can't transfer between computers or something.
That might be so.
Let's see.
So they might tag the PDF or the Kindle version. I don't know, but I know there was some little thing that came up when I was downloading it. It says it has, this blah 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 came up, and in order for you to view it, this has to happen. So.
Okay. And
I wasn't paying attention much. I said I want them.
Whatever you say, I'll agree to it. Just give me my dragon.
Well, Nika could have asked for like the first blood of a child or something, and you just give me, and that was the end.
I got 2 kids, so I'm good.
Oh, I'm sure Mrs. Nick won't like that.
No, I just said blood. Didn't say the life of a child.
And last thing, if you head over to our website, rfipodcast.com, we have a new 10-foot poll up, and we'd like you to vote. It'll be up there for at least 30 days. The question is, who would you like us to request an interview from next? We have Ernie Gygax, Luke Gygax, Kim Mohan, Jim Wampler, and Gail Gygax. Voting is in process as we speak, and so far in the lead is Ernie Gygax with 45% of the vote. So get in there and vote often, like Jason used to do more than once. I don't know how he did it, but he did.
Just vote and vote often. It's like up here in Northeast Ohio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I get into that, Nick. Anyway,
I won't. I'll leave that one alone.
I also went to the website and made it a little more clear for where you can get the direct downloads, Libsyn library, the MP3 library.
Okay.
As well as I put all the interview shows up so you can quickly just find all the interviews.
Yep.
And the actual plays, you can click on those and see those as well. And there's a little bit adjustment to the website.
And I think everybody can see what's going on with all these people in the 10-foot pole. Well, it's because we just interviewed who?
Jason?
Yes, and
Tim Kask.
And Tim Kask, who are a part of Gygax Magazine.
Yay!
Which we're all really excited about. So
Definitely.
I can't wait to get my issue.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
As of now, you haven't gotten yours yet?
Not yet. I just got an email yesterday saying that it was sent. That it was mailed.
Yeah, I got my email yesterday too saying it was sent. But from what I was reading, I think that notification was actually kind of delayed being sent out. So the magazine shipped prior to us being notified that it was shipped.
Oh, goody.
So hopefully we'll get it early next week.
Oh, I'd be happy as a little schoolgirl.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll definitely enjoy it, boys. Definitely enjoy it. Just so everyone out there, there's some really good articles in there.
Great.
So let's head over to the main part of the show here and get some voicemails going here. All right, let me get the first voicemail going. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Ken. I was just listening to episode number 38 about Sandbox Pictures, and there was the stage advice about the person who wanted to use the glitch as a big bad evil guy and was looking for some feedback. And you guys talked about how one of the keys to role-playing that would be that the Lich would use minions and henchmen and hirelings rather than put itself in harm's way and to do whatever it could to stay alive. But something I wanted to add to that is it would probably also be vindictive. So if you use the Lich in a campaign, if your characters come across it, then it would flee rather than fight if it came to that. But it occurs to me that it would also keep its eye on the player and come back after them when they least expect it. And not in terms of like being lame and wait for them when they get out of the dungeon itself, but maybe like, many sessions later or just over the course of time, sending different things to them, which may to the players seem like wandering encounters or random, but with, signatures that maybe eventually they'll pick up on. It's coming from the Lich, that it's kind of in its own way, hunting them down, trying to get back whatever they may have taken from them, or just smite them for having the audacity to have crossed its path. And so it would be a big bad evil guy, not just for one campaign or one adventure or like one module's worth of work, but something that would come back over and over again until they finally figured out a way in a grand scheme, like an overarching story, to trap it and kill it, so that these things had to stop. So that in theory you could have the characters doing all sorts of other campaign stuff, but periodically keep running into this bad guy who is just recurring to mess with them or to try and kill them because of the one time they encountered him in the past. And so I just wanted to run that by you. Love the show. Great work. Thanks, bye.
So what do you guys think?
That's some great stuff right there.
Yeah.
Ken, you're one devious DM. I love you, man. That's awesome. That's exactly how you should play a Lich, because he's got all the time in the world to wreak revenge on the player characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ken. Let's go to our next email.
Hey, RFI guys. Love the show. Think you guys do a great job, especially for volunteer work. All right, I have two questions. The first one is armor and dex bonus. Like, at what stage in armor wearing do you lose your dex bonus, or say, do you like have it or minus it when wearing steadily heavy and more encumbering armor? Or what are your thoughts on this? Thanks. My second question is two-weapon fighting. Like, how exactly does it work? I mean, I assume there's probably like a minus to hit for your second weapon or whatnot, but just wondering what you thought about this and what the book rules are on two-weapon fighting. Thanks. See you later. Goodbye.
And the squeaky door closes.
Yes, fortunately it was coming from my chair, so therefore I can edit myself out since I record myself on a separate channel.
But we're recording this now, and it sounded really cool, so leave it in.
Okay. I shall use my chair for gaffer sounds.
Yes.
So who has that ruling now?
On the attacks with two weapons?
Yeah, I heard you were talking about that earlier, Nick.
Yeah, it's in the Dungeon Master's Guide, page 70. And the attacks with two weapons, you can use one weapon in each hand. The second weapon must be a dagger or a hand axe.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there is a penalty. The primary weapon hand of the user is at a -2. The secondary is at -4. If your dex is below 6, you use the reaction attacking adjustment penalties in the player's handbook and are added to each weapon attack.
If it's below 6, you said?
Below 6.
Right.
I don't think you'd be able to hold a weapon if you were 6 or below. So
Well, yeah, I'm just going by what it says here. And if your dex is above 15, there's a downward adjustment in the weapon penalties as shown, although this never gives a positive bonus rating for such attacks. So that a 16 dex, your secondary would be at a -3, your primary would be at -1. At 17 dex, you'd be -2 at your secondary hand, 0 at your primary, and at 18 you'd be at -1 and 0 respectively. So that's like before any magical bonuses, of course. So that's how that works. But it does say the secondary weapon must be either a dagger or a hand axe. I believe that changed in later editions. I think the later editions you can have.
They're pretty much similar to that, but I guess with like 3rd edition, there were some feats that they added on that helped increase it. And
right, because it was like you could take like ambidextrous and dual weapon fighting and get the penalties down to like a -2 for both, and then once you throw in your hit normal to hit bonus and all that, you end up in the positive.
Now, don't rangers? They don't have that. That penalty for two weapons, I believe.
Classes Ranger.
I thought they didn't, or I might be thinking of later editions.
Yeah, I always thought that was
that might be in 2nd edition. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's in 2nd edition. So, Okay.
Might as well look it up while we're sitting here looking at the book.
Yep,
I looked in the Unearthed Arcana. I thought they might have had something in there about Rangers and the 2 weapon attacks, but they don't.
No, and it's not in the player's handbook either.
So
yep, that's for your second edition players.
Yeah,
refer
I
to
thought there
Zach's hand.
thing about having one be a larger sword than the other one, so you can use like a short sword along with a long sword, but it had to be smaller in that sense.
Right.
I think that might have been second edition, but
Right.
It
Yeah.
might have been. But
Yes.
yeah, according to the first edition rules, it's either has to be a hand axe or a dagger.
Yep. So by the book in first edition, Drizzt doesn't exist.
No, he doesn't.
No dueling scimitars for you.
Well, he's a drow. He's different. He's special.
And okay, so he wanted to know about the armor class too. I think he might have been thinking of a later edition with that also.
Yeah.
I think so, too.
Yeah, because there's no reference to losing any dex bonus due to armor in the player's handbook or DMG that we found.
Yeah, the only thing there is the regular dexterity was it armor class adjustments for either high or low dex.
Yep. And
So
yeah, you never lose them, even if
don't lose them, even if you're wearing full plate mail.
Yep.
Yeah, I know third edition definitely took those things away, so you might be thinking of the D20 edition or something.
Mm.
All right, so let's go to our next voicemail.
Hey, everybody. This is DM Angelo out here in Los Angeles. And I had well, first of all, I wanted to tell you guys are doing an awesome job. Just keep it up. It's a great resource for old school gamers. And, yeah, what else can I say? You guys are awesome. My little question is for you guys. I don't remember exactly who it was, but it was some of the earlier episodes. One of you guys mentioned a D6 method of doing, I don't know if you want to call them skill checks or just checks individual, and then adding a D6 for complexity and or difficulty. So I have adopted that system in my game and absolutely think it's pretty awesome way of doing things. For instance, I had in my last game a ranger that climbed up in a tree and a zombie, well, he was scouting, and I guess there was a walker that walked by him, and he decided to, from 10 feet up, put his bow back away, jump down, and roll with the sword in hand and try to slash at the zombie and surprise him. So what I did was okay, yeah, you can do it. You can visualize it and it sounds real. What the heck? Why not do it? So what I did was he had a pretty high dexterity, and I gave him, okay, it sounds kind of complicated. Started out with the base of 3d6. I think I added a couple more dice to that because it kind of sounded a little crazy, but what the heck? So he, roll under your dex, and obviously he succeeded, did it, and the group killed the zombie. But anyways, I just wanted to know what, if anybody uses a system similar to that, what is what is kind of a rule for, I'm just winging it right now, but what is kind of a rule as far as adding, adding dice to it, and what's your guys' take is on that, and what kind of checks you would use, to put to this method. I've been just using mainly physical activities that are kind of crazy, and that require some type of a check that I see will work good with the game. Anyways, I'm starting to ramble, but you guys are doing awesome, and I'm really, really glad that I stumbled upon this podcast. And tell you what, I started out in the 80s and went to a another system a couple years back, and ever since then I couldn't handle it anymore, and I got some duct tape and duct taped up my old books and my old other edition books, and it's not turned back, not went back since. So AT&T is the way to go. So anyways, guys, thanks a lot, and thank you much. Bye.
Well, thank you much.
All right.
Yes. Well, yeah, that was actually me. I was talking about that because the great Joe DM.
Not the great Joe DM.
We need to get a drop for that, man.
Yes. We need to do.
We need to
do something for that.
like they do on the radio. The great Joe DM. Anyway, yeah, he did that method, and I took it. It was a 4d6, and then from there you would adjust it minus or plus depending on the situation. And there's no real. I don't think he had any real standards for it. I just know as it got harder, he kept adding a d6 to it based on the situation. If it was a lot easier, he would minus one off of it. You kind of have to judge it yourself as a DM. So
you'd roll like a certain amount of d6s, and then whatever ability, if you rolled above or below that, I guess
you'd have to. The target normally was below
the ability score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like Dex or Constitution or something like that.
Yeah, below the ability score. So if it was a dexterity check, you have to roll below your dexterity.
Yeah. I actually use that in my game. So I use the 3d6, or sometimes I'll be like, give me a d20 and a d6, or here, roll this d30.
I've been using like d20 almost all the time.
That's fine. I see a lot of people use that too.
Yeah.
I used to use a 3d6, but then it was like when players have higher dexterity, it was kind of like their percentage chance of failing were like, what, 1% at that point?
Yeah. Right.
So I figured the 4d6, that at least gives them a fair chance to fail like everybody else.
Right. So that'd be like a good baseline would be 46.
Yeah, I figured so.
Huh, okay.
Yeah. All right, so cool. And an interesting situation. His player was in there with the zombie, so.
I like it.
Yep. Me likey. Anyway. I'll try to do a little Chris Farley for you. Let's go on to our. Oh, Richard. Anyway, next voicemail.
Hey guys, this is DM Kojo. I'm calling to talk to you about the half orc. It seems like it's really underused, at least always in my games. No one ever wants to play a half orc. Kind of a joke. Nobody takes it seriously. And you probably may know by now that I like players to play unusual things. I like the illusionist or the gnome. I like the unusual things. But the half-orc, what's your experience with it? Many people play it. What are some pros and cons of playing it? And also, do half-orcs have pig face? All right, guys.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kojo. We love when he calls in. So he has an interesting one this week about half-orcs. Yeah, I guess they would have half a pig face. What do you guys think?
Yeah, they'd be only half a pig face. Yeah. I would agree.
Maybe we should make a pig face random generation chart to see what part is pig faced. Did you get the pig ears? Did you get the pig nose? The pig jaw?
If you want to waste time on doing that, Matt, go ahead. I don't want to do that, but it is funny. Let's see, half-orcs. I don't usually have them in my games because people don't like playing them because usually, A, they're ugly, B, and they're not accepted by most DMs in society, so they always get the brunt of everything. Yeah. As most DMs follow the word of the letter that's listed in the book as they're hated by everybody, so...
Oh. Well, I have a half-orc in my current Ravenloft campaign, and I don't go by that everyone hates half-orcs situation.
How dare you?
Yeah, so that way they can actually be more accepted and playable, unless you want to play that, well, these, much like the canteen in Star Wars, those half-orcs aren't welcome here. Get them out.
Oh, serve your kind here. You're droids.
Right, yeah. I don't do that, so. But my the player is really wanting to play like a really stupid character. Oh. So he actually asked to lower his intelligence down to 6.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, let's do this. At which point it led to some wacky situations in the Ravenloft campaign where they were being followed by this frail-looking guy holding a children's book of poetry and a lantern. And they weren't quite sure if it was a ghost or if it was a real person. So they cast the sleep spell on it, and the guy collapsed. Our half-orc was still really curious, is this ghost or a person? So he decided to go cut his pinky off. And, well, he cut the guy's pinky off, and unfortunately for him, the guy only had 1 hit point.
No, jeez.
So the guy bled out to death.
Oh.
And now our really dumb half-orc is now being haunted by the ghost of this guy. And it's only him who can see it, and he'll just pop in and cite random phrases that are actually hints for what's going on in the world. But
Gosh.
Yes. But it has to be ciphered through the mind of a half-orc with a 6 intelligence.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and and it's just so bad at this point because the half-orc just keeps hearing the voices and they won't stop. He's like trying to drink himself into stupors to pass out.
In my head.
Yeah, he asked the magic user to cast sleep on him. I mean, it's just like, make it stop. So I'm having some fun with that, but
that's awesome.
It just depends on the player and how they're going to play their half-orc. Are they playing a half-orc because they want to play something different, or are they playing it because they want to go around and just disrupt your game by being smelly, brutish half-orc that just causes a bunch of trouble, as opposed to helping the party and the story go along?
Yeah, I have always been the opinion that I look at half-orcs, that's a good role-playing opportunity. If that's what you want to play, I mean, yeah, out of the player's handbook, they're pretty much shunned by most other races. But you know what? Maybe this is you want to have a bit of a challenge by playing this half-orc and trying to, maybe prove himself to society that he has some worth and he could do some good, and be a betterment to. Be better, a better. I don't know. He could do the right things.
Right.
Even though he has an uphill battle, but I think, in a way, I think it's kind of a cool race to play if you want to get out of your comfort zone and play it that way. Kind of the outcast, but he wants to prove himself to others.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's just something different, and I think a lot of DMs will get hung up on we have to have this animosity between half-orcs and all the other races. You don't actually have to do that. If it makes sense for your world, then yeah. I think that's the most important thing to consider. What is the place of half-orcs in the world you're creating?
Right.
Is it just an accepted half-breed? Or is it, as some people interpret it, are they created under less than ideal situations?
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of plays into the type of character and how they're treated.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It all depends what kind of game world you have. In fact, I would say, like in my game world for my other game, for my regular group, I would say half-orcs are generally more accepted for the most part because evil has taken over most of the world anyway. So
right. They're not that evil. They're only half evil.
Well,
semi-evil?
Yes.
Yes.
So anyway, okay, so we have one more voicemail left. Let's get to that one right away.
Hey, guys, this is Andy up in New Jersey, and shout out to Vince. Looking forward to get back to the Book of Sorrows at some point. But I had a question for you about thieves. I've always been bothered by the fact that the thieves' skills are so abysmal at first level. It just almost makes no sense. I couldn't even consider them even apprentice thieves, much less first-level characters. I'm just wondering if you guys have ever, in any games you've run or played in, come across a good way to supplement the skills that thieves have, that list of skills, something that makes it a little more interesting or even achievable for thieves to accomplish much the first level or two. certainly up to third level. Anyway, I appreciate your time and look forward to hearing what you say. Take care.
Okay, and that was from Andy. All right, cool, Andy. Yeah, I miss playing with Andy. He was so much fun to play with. He was playing Corbin in the Book of Sorrows. And, yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the time to get back to that game because I work during the week and late, and by the time I get home, it's, it's family time and stuff like that, so... And that's the only day we can play. It was Tuesday nights. So maybe if I get a different job sometime soon, then. But for now, no. As far as thieving skills, I think we've said it before in the past. Those numbers are only a guideline. Right. The DM is responsible for making the situation, or I should say, adjusting the numbers based on the situation. It's not like if he has a 50%. It's always a 50%. The weather could play a factor. The darkness, the light, how many people are around. I mean, Nick, I think the last time we spoke about this, you said that if he's in a crowd of people, you get like a bonus because, he's covered better when he's picked up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, those sorts of things, all those different environmental factors can play into it. Yeah, those are kind of like a baseline.
Right.
And you adjust accordingly, up or down. I mean, besides the given adjustments that you have for dexterity and race and what types of armor the thief might be wearing, I mean, you have all those different environmental factors that could play in whatever situation it may be.
Right, and then the speed at which they're doing it also would affect.
Speed.
Yeah, if they have all day to pick that lock, they're going to pick that lock.
Right.
Now, if they pick the lock in like under a minute, that's a different story.
Right. I mean, let's go on with that lock picking analogy. I mean, how much time do they have? What's the quality of the lock?
Right.
Is it a really poor quality? I mean, a cheapo one that was made? I mean, they'd probably get a bonus. Or is it like something like that was out of a combination lock that's like out of Angels and Demons, So
right.
The book Angels and Demons, it's just like super combo lock sort of thingy. Right. So you're going to get hit with a penalty, maybe a pretty severe one. So all those things factor in.
Right. I mean, and when you have your players roll, you don't have to tell them the modifiers. So that way, if you'd rather them succeed than fail, you can just kind of say, yeah, you succeeded due to modifiers. You don't have to tell them your math. If them failing would hurt the story.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, don't worry about the numbers being low at the beginning. As a DM, you can make it to where the chances for success are better just by taking into account the environmental situations, or perhaps the players have some brilliant plan for actually accomplishing whatever they're doing, be it hiding and then like, okay, I'm going to be walking with this potted plant in front of me like Wile E. Coyote in Looney Tunes. Maybe they get a little bit of a bonus for that.
No.
Or maybe you actually give them a penalty for trying to hide like Wile E. Coyote. That's up to you.
Yeah, that's where I would kind of fall on that.
But, yeah, it's just up to you to determine what modifiers. Remember, those numbers on the charts are neutral situations. There's no advantageous, no disadvantages with those numbers. And you're rarely going to have a situation where there's no situational modifiers, really. I mean, there will always be something that should affect the roll. So take advantage of it to make it easier or harder depending on how you think it should go.
Excellent.
Excellent news.
Yeah. So that includes all the voicemails. And if you'd like to leave a voicemail, you can dial 570-865-4210, the hotline.
Yay.
Oh, that's right. I had a request from Facebook, by the way, from, I believe it's Michael Oswald, who wants me and you, Nick, to sing Sage Advice again. He misses that.
Sage advice. We're going to have some sage advice.
There you go. That was just for him. I believe that was his name. I'm sorry, I don't have Facebook up in front of me. I don't want to crash everything on the computer.
I normally don't do requests, but, hey, what the heck.
Okay, so let's head over to the email. So we got a big bag here full of emails. So
yes.
rfistaff@gmail.com is our email address. And we got the first email coming from Michael F., and he writes, I just started listening to your podcast. I'm on episode 12, literally, as I type this. Not right. I just wanted to say your podcasts are amazing. Jason is truly creative and a truly creative individual, and I love listening to his calls on rulings or introducing elements that can solve puzzling questions. Vince is a greatly humorous guy who can always seem to apply some absurdness thinking to rulings. Yes, I can, which somehow makes sense. And the back and forth between these two is what I believe gives this podcast its uniqueness. Now, I personally don't play AD&D. Having only played D&D via 4E.
Oh.
I just broke my tongue, yeah. I can hear the groans already. There were the groans.
Yeah.
Shock horror.
No, and if you enjoy it, you just keep playing.
Yeah.
That's all.
And it's a perfectly fine tabletop miniature game.
Yeah, Matt's still sticking with those guns.
As Matt says sarcastically.
No, I actually did enjoy. I played it in a dungeon delve at Gen Con one year and had a lot of fun.
I mean, I played Castle Ravenloft and Dungeon Command, and that's similar to 4th edition, so
yeah, it's
whatever. Good minis game.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I do come from a long line of RP. He comes from a long line. Wait, yeah, it does say that. I do come from a long. So he was born into RPGs. So he is an RPG himself, apparently.
Awesome.
No, I do come from a long line of RPGs, Shadowrun, White Wolf products, and a lot of self-detailed GURPS. I'd like to see some of that stuff. And it was only a year ago or so that I convinced friends to play D&D. Oh, that's a shame. What I think is great about your podcast is that it confirms my own belief that RPGs should be storytelling first and mechanics second. Yeah. He didn't actually write it that way. I just read it that way. The power enveloped in the words of a dungeon master as a storyteller is far greater than any attempted adaptation to turn tabletop games into power plays. Should I read it like a wrestler? Power plays or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I drank too much turbo coffee today. I'm also a bit of an adapter of the rule books, holding no reservation at the changing anything I dislike, to which my players understand. We may be playing D&D, but without knowing anything about AD&D, despite the common themes and names, I'd like to think that we're keeping the spirit of Sir Gygax's original vision alive. I have no real reason to email you. Any reason is good enough, don't worry. Apart from saying I tend to listen every one of your casts, and I hope you maintain the path you're currently on. You all have my gratitude and praise, all natural 20s.
Huzzah.
He's going to be in a big surprise as we switched over the cast a few times.
Yeah.
A few times, yes.
Yeah.
Things have changed a little bit.
Yes.
But hey.
But yeah.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
Yes, and you may actually be keeping the spirit of Gary Gygax alive more than you think, because there was, I believe, somewhere in Dragon Magazine, he actually complained about storytelling and role-playing overtook the actual game portion of Dungeons & Dragons. And that was in the early 80s.
Yeah.
So remember, it started off as a war game that evolved into storytelling, so...
That was the thing about Gary. Sometimes he was one way, and then he completely flopped the other way. I didn't understand why he did that so much.
Yeah.
Because he came older and more curmudgeon? I don't know.
Or maybe there was a certain level of balance, and he just saw the pendulum keep swinging to the extremes on both ends.
Yeah.
Like role-playing and just spewing off 20 pages of backstory became the fad, and he was like, no, that's too much. Then it was like, oh, wait a minute, too much mechanics, gotta get... Yeah, I think it was maybe finding that perfect balance that he liked.
That's what I tried to strive in my game, at least. At least I hope I do.
Yeah.
That I try to maintain that balance between, storytelling. I shouldn't say storytelling, because this sounds like I'm just rambling on and on to my players, and they're just sitting passively.
Well, no, it's a group storytelling.
Well, in a way, I present the situations, I present plots
Right.
and things to them. They're the ones who are creating the story by them interacting in the world.
Yes, it's kind of like...
present to them.
Yeah, it's kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, when the host throws out, here's your topic and your genre, go.
That's exactly it. That's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah.
And
Like a hat or something like that.
Yes.
yeah, exactly. I think a good DM is like that in many ways. He just presents the plots, the ideas, the concepts, and it should be up to the players to run with it wherever they want to.
Right.
And and game mechanics, well, we've always said ruling's not rules. I mean, there are some rules that I like to stay by. I mean, generally, for the most part, like in combat, I try to stay by the combat rules for the most part. But everything else is kind of arbitrary. And as long as you're consistent, and I try to maintain that balance, and ultimately, if my players are happy, if they're having a good time, hey, go with it, man.
Exactly.
It's great. It's all good.
Exactly, because that's the point, having fun. If your group is having fun, who cares if it's not exactly by the book? It's all about getting together with friends and having fun. And whatever flavor you prefer, do it. There's nothing wrong with the heavy tactical by the book if that's what your group wants. Or if you want rules light with just playing the rules fast and loose just to keep the story moving, and that's fine too.
Don't go diceless, man. That's just crazy talk, man.
Yes.
That diceless stuff is just crazy, man.
Yes, like Eric Wujek, who did TMNT for Palladium, actually came up with the Amber diceless system. I never actually read it, though, so I'm not sure how it works. But
no, diceless is bad.
Yeah.
I'm not going to rock, paper, scissors my way through combat. Sorry, not going to happen.
What about using the Bago chits?
Oh, shit.
Well, that was back in the day. You only had chits and a lot. And remember the rule book, the box sets?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They had chits. Well, that was all you could get.
Yeah.
Yeah, they ran out of dice. Too expensive.
Yeah, they were too expensive. Exactly.
Yeah, and also remember when you're playing in your group, don't just single out one player because they're the ones that are talking and doing the most role playing. Oh, don't forget to go around the table and say, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, another good DM does that. I mean, it sometimes wakes those people up. Like, you're going around there, what are you doing? Huh? Oh, what?
Right.
Talking to me? Yes.
Right.
I've seen a lot of people, and especially the large group that we've been playing with, my group, I'm sitting there as a player waiting for my turn, and I see other people with their head down on the table practically sleeping because they're waiting as one person is just sitting there going, I do this, and I go over there, and I go over there, and I do this, and then I kill it. It's like, dude, give someone else a chance.
Right.
Yeah, it could be hard. That's a good point with large groups. If you get more than 8 people, it could be very difficult. I mean, there are times if everything's right, I'll have like 9 or 10 people at the regular game group meeting that we have once a month. So, and it could be kind of daunting, but my players are experienced enough that they know it's like, okay, they generally some gravitate towards one type of situation and some others gravitate towards some other situation that might be going on at the same time, and I'll work with one little group here for a few minutes. I'll say, okay, cut scene. I'm going over here to you guys now. So almost like a director in a movie, in a way, or like you're directing a series like on television. It's almost like you almost do it like that. And in a way, it's kind of exciting because I think they visualize it almost that way.
Right.
So
okay, cool.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Yes, Nick, put a rope around it, okay?
Hey, I said I'm sorry.
Hit yourself in the head with a blunt weapon, all right? Fine, use the flat edge of a blade. There you go.
I'm not going to use either. It'll hurt.
Yeah. Scott S. writes, and this one is pretty interesting. I'm curious, what are your opinions on a Magic user spell book? What do they weigh? How many spells can one book hold? And do you allow traveling or smaller spell books? Keep up the great show. Also, expanding upon this question, because I know a lot of new people ask this question. On top of this question, they always ask, well, why does it have that chart in the beginning of the player's handbook that says minimum spells, maximum spells? But if you look in the DM's guide, it says you only start with 4 spells. Which one do I refer to? So I know there are options in the Unearthed Arcana about traveling spell books, but I generally don't use those. So, Nick, you have it open. I hear you flipping a page. So
yeah, just saying, page 79 and 80 in the Unearthed Arcana, if anybody has it, that has all the guidelines for Magic user and illusionist spell books, including traveling spell books. So you can use those rules, and you can look to other game systems for maybe more detailed info if you want it on spell books. So, but in first edition AD&D, yeah, look to Unearthed Arcana, pages 79 and 80. They talk about how the cost, the types of spell books, the physical aspects, their value, and also casting the spell directly from the book.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, which I know in my games, I usually, as a house rule for spell books, I say the spell book is about as thin as the player's handbook, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I would also say that it magically changes pages. As you keep changing a page, you get another page, and the other previous page just goes into the book. So when you open the book, you just go, say, magic missile, and boom, open the book. There's the magic missile spell. Then you close the book, and you say, I don't know, fireball, and open the book, there's fireball. So it's kind of like a never-ending spell book pages. I kind of think that just makes it a little more neat and interesting to do it that way.
I like this little rule, if you care to use it, when you're directly casting from a spell book.
It goes away, right?
Oh, and there's more.
Oh.
Go on.
Yeah, there is a 1% chance per level of the spell that the spells immediately preceding the following of the spell cast will likewise be destroyed.
Oh.
There is an additional 1% chance that the casting of a spell directly from a spell book will destroy the entire book.
Wow.
I didn't realize.
I didn't know that one. I conveniently forgot that one because in my other group with the kids, they've had a couple of times had to cast directly from a spell book. This was like the last ditch effort. So
you said that you can cast directly from the spell book anytime you want. It's like the scroll effect; it just disappears.
That's how I kind of did. I didn't know about the cumulative 1% per level of the spell might destroy either the book or the previous spell on the other page.
Yeah. You don't want to be casting that wish spell from your spell book.
No.
No. But what are your guys' thoughts on maybe using something that isn't necessarily a book as your spell book? Maybe I played a game where it was in Forgotten Realms where they had taken over the entire world. So they went and exterminated all non-red wizards. So I was playing a magic user who had a bunch of rocks as his spellbook, with his spells carved on the rocks. So that way he just looked like a crazy old guy playing with a bunch of rocks when he was actually studying his spells.
I got a rock.
Yeah. I have. Don't take my bag of rocks.
Charlie Brown.
Yes. But what are your thoughts on maybe for specific campaigns using something not necessarily book form to store your spells?
Well, I know one way you could tattoo the spells on you.
Yeah.
You could do that. I don't know, maybe use clay placards maybe, or wood placards.
Well, tattooing the spell on you, you can run out of the room real quick. I mean,
true.
We bend over quick, read my butt, and give me that spell.
Well, at that point, maybe you have to gain some weight to get more spells.
Ironically, the one on his butt is a delayed blast fireball.
Right.
So the delayed blast fireball. Wow. So is it like the fat wizard has an advantage, Matt? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, more surface area.
Okay.
No, but actually every spell is written so differently in the handwriting of the magic user. Some spells can go on for pages upon pages.
Right. Isn't there something about the variable lengths of the space they take up in a book?
I believe there might be. I don't really...
I think that is in Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we know that no two magic users write the spell the same. Henceforth, the reason why first edition has read magic. Yeah. Everybody argues about, well, I could read another magic. It's the same class. Well, no, they don't always write the same way, do they?
Nope.
Right. That's just one of the things you keep an idea about magic users. They kept their spells secret, how they learned them. Right. So one magic user not necessarily couldn't read the other magic user's spell book.
Right, because they'd use different types of shorthand and have different ways of channeling the magical powers to get the same effect.
Also, you could put explosive runes on the book.
Exactly.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Like I do.
That's what I was kind of annoyed at. I was kind of annoyed at when it was in later editions. They got rid of read magic because they were just like, well, you're a magic user. You can just read it because everything's written in a standard handwriting. It's like, ugh.
See, standardized tests, I tell you.
Mm-hmm. Standardized.
Dumbing down all the magic users. See?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, apparently they went to the public school system of magic users and illusionists.
Definitely true.
Next one is from, oh boy, this is a long one. DM Longstaff Sixpenny Striker. And he or she writes, "Hey gang, the very first adventure I ever played was N1 Against the Cult of the Reptile God by Douglas Niles. Has any of you played it? If so, what are your observations? I would love to hear a review of this module if you ever get around to it. Love the show and keep up the good work. I'm a huge fan of all the Wild Games production shows and listen to them regularly. I'm still getting caught up on RFI, though. I apologize, you already addressed N1 in a previous show." There's this Blackstone guy.
Yeah.
I just reviewed it a while back, but...
Damn him. Quit on us, that guy.
Actually, as far as observations, it's one of my favorite introductory adventures. It's got a little bit of everything in it. It's got the town that's, traumatized and they're under some evil curse or whatever, and you have to find out what's going on with the town, why people are disappearing, and there's a dungeon, and there's people that are part of an evil cult, and
it's kind of Village of Hamlet, except with reptile gods and instead of bandits, kidnappings.
Yeah, it's like a Temple of Elemental Evil light.
Yeah.
In a way. And my experience, I've run it a couple of times, is I guess some pitfalls that could be with it is, now, since I'm going to discuss the module, spoiler alert for everybody now that I'll be discussing this. So spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
No.
Okay. In the town of Orlane, there is a temple. Keep in mind now, all these modules at the time were written for World of Greyhawk fantasy campaign setting. So the temple is for this agricultural goddess by the name of Marika. And Marika, her priests inside this temple, about a year ago, have been converted over to the reptile god cult. And most of the people don't know it. So the problem I had was, one of is looking at like the head priest. I think he's a sick. I'm going off just the top of my head. He's like level 6 or 7th level cleric. How is he getting spells above 3rd level? Because technically, according to the rules, if you can't cast any spells above 3rd if you fall out of your faith, correct? It's like
definitely correct.
It's like 2nd or 3rd level spells you cannot cast above a certain level.
Right.
Well, no, wait.
So,
3rd, maybe is it 4th? I don't know.
I thought it was even lower than that.
Go ahead.
I thought it was like 2nd or 3rd.
I think it's
spells.
3rd. I think you can get the 1st and 2nd because they don't come straight from your deity. They come from like his assistants. It's not until 3rd level spells that you're
They're
actually
directly from your god or goddess.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how is he getting these level spells? And he's like a 6th or 7th level, cleric. And I thought, well, obviously the reptile god can't do it because it's not really a god in there. It's just some other creature. So I kind of played it as that this creature is actually like kind of an avatar or, a messenger for some other evil, like, I always played it like as either a demon or a devil, because according to deities and demigods, demons and devils, the major ones, the archdevils and such, they are all intents and purposes, they're lesser gods. They have the ability as a lesser god, so they do have worshippers. So that's how I kind of played it, and I think that's a really cool, interesting angle to go with it, because then after that, if the characters progress, now they got a serious villain to deal with, either a demon or a devil. So that's how I kind of played it, and that was a fun way of doing it. And I also like that it's not your typical orcs or goblins or whatever. It's troglodytes that are some of the major creatures in here. I did, and the only other thing I think I had an issue with was a lot, or not me per se, but some other people saying the big bad guy at the end, that Spirit Naga. there's only that's pretty nasty for first through third level characters to try to defeat as a spirit naga. I mean, that's a pretty nasty monster, and in a way that you have to get in contact with a particular person in the village who has a scroll of certain spells that you can use to defeat them, defeat the Naga, and people think that's kind of railroady in a way, but I guess you can get around that. I don't know. I really didn't have much of an issue with it. Some people feel that is an issue, but hey, that's how the module was written. So,
Okay.
But I've always enjoyed it. I think it's a good introductory adventure. Like I said, it's got a little bit of everything in it. I mean, I don't know what your experiences with it. Neither you,
Matt sure has to beg to differ with you there.
Yeah.
Squeak.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll get to doing another review on N1 as we'll go over it. Maybe I don't know if we should, because Blackstone did it, but we fired Blackstone. So.
Yeah, if you want to listen to Blackstone, you can go back to issue 6, Divine Intervention, where Blackstone talked about N1. So
yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do another N1 just for get all of our input on it, just so.
Yeah, maybe we could. And that wasn't much of a review, as much of like it was an overview of the whole module. Maybe we could just talk about the module sometime.
Yeah.
And just kind of throw some ideas out there.
Yeah, I want you to like all the other ones, so sure.
Yeah, in fact, we could discuss about how you could actually link that module to the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Ooh.
Yes. There's a way you could do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez. That was pretty weird. So our next email comes from John C. He writes, I am new to the podcast and I love it. I played in the early 80s when I was 11. I'm now 42. And my only version is first edition. Yay.
Yay.
I am in the midst of teaching my family how to play after not playing for 20 some odd years. And the info was very helpful. Was very helpful. I dig the host as well, but I am a bit sad to learn I'll eventually get to the episodes with no Jason. But look forward to how it changed. So thank you from an OG AD&D fan, original geek, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you, John C.
Yeah, I think Jason stepped out after 59.
Yeah, 59 was his last regular show, but he made a few appearances after that. So
he's been busy with other projects.
Yeah. Apparently, he did some magazine or something.
Yeah, what was that called? That magazine?
Die something magazine or
Gugex?
Gugex, yeah, Gugex magazine.
I think it's really cool that John talks about how he's getting his family into playing it, and
yeah,
you know what? It is a real joy for me as a father to get my kids just a few years ago into it. I really wasn't sure because I both have girls, but I got my youngest, Anna, and she totally digs playing D&D, and she's having a ball with being with the group of friends that we have here that we get together with at least once a month with her and the kids down the street, and they are really amazing how they are just totally getting into it. And they're 11, 12-year-old kids, and they're problem solving. They're doing the combat. They're planning things, and it just kind of reminds you when you were that age and how you were kind of all, learning this for yourself. So it's really cool. It's really satisfying and enjoying to see all those kids. I hope John has as much success and pleasure with it as well. From one dad to another.
Awesome. Matt, you want to grab the next one?
Sure. This next one is from Rob from Essex, England.
Ooh.
Yes.
From England.
England, yes. Hi, great, wise, and all-knowing sages of RFI.
Who are they?
I don't know either. Are you sure? Is there another RFI podcast?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I guess we're wise and all-knowing, huh? I have listened to every episode of your brilliant podcast, mostly on my way to work on the tube in London. Just want to thank you for such a great show that is dedicated to AD&D, a game that I have always loved and cherished since I was a young boy in the 70s. Long live RFI, long live AD&D. Now that I have calmed down, unless I've mistaken, you've never done a show about the magic users' familiars. What does the panel think? Can almost any creature be a familiar? Green slime in a jar? Think not. Keep flying the AD&D banner flying high as I add extra flying to that sentence in my reading.
You just got so excited.
Exactly. I'm a great and all-knowing sage, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wise and all-knowing.
Yeah.
That would be a good show.
What?
Familiars.
About familiars.
Oh, okay. Do you want us to answer the question, or do you want to save it for a show on familiars?
Yeah.
Well,
you think we can make a whole show out of familiars?
I don't know.
I don't know about a whole show, but I know we can do a whole segment. But because with familiars, it doesn't have to be the stereotypical, oh, it's a cat, oh, it's a bird, oh, it's a bat. No, it could be, you can change.
A toad.
Yes, a toad. But you can change those up to fit more like the creatures that would be domestic for your world. If you're playing in a more tropical setting, perhaps a monkey would be a more appropriate familiar.
Oh, the little monkey, yeah.
Yeah, I actually did once play a magic user that had a helper monkey as his familiar.
A little squeaky guy.
Exactly. Go fetch this. I need some Eye of Newt. Go fetch. I mean, monkey. Exactly. So, but yeah, I think you can actually have various different things as familiars. It doesn't have to be just the list in the book. Just kind of tailor it to the game world you're playing in.
Well, yeah, and you also have the, if you roll, like, I don't remember which number on the table for the Find Familiar spell, you can get the special ones. You know, Quasits, Imps, Pseudo-Dragon, a Brownie. I think if you're chaotic neutral, you could get a Brownie as your familiar.
Yeah.
Like a brownie to eat, or sorry.
No, you don't eat the brownie. Well, you could eat brownie, but I wouldn't recommend. It's not that kind of brownie.
It's highly discouraged.
It's highly discouraged. Yes, but I'm sure. I think there was actually some articles back in the day in Dragon Magazine about different types of familiars for Magic users. So
it's up to
you know what? We'll look into it. I think we could at least do a segment on it.
I'd say, yeah, we could. It's up to the DM, though. I mean, you could sit down with the player and just flip through the players, monster manuals and the Fiend folios and just kind of pick something or make something up. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's not too overly powerful and it makes sense in a magical sort of way. Yeah, go with it.
Maybe if you have a whatchamacallit and make it Yoda or something.
Cast Fireball, you will.
Familiar I will be. Listen to you, I will not.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks, Rob, from Essex, England. I hope you enjoy the rest of our shows and catching up and in the tube, as he said.
In the tube.
Yeah. The
underground.
Yeah.
The underground.
I actually found an article in Dragon Magazine about having dragons as familiars.
Ooh.
Yes. Issue 146, page 14. Dragons are a wizard's best friend.
146, isn't it after AD&D?
Actually, it's labeled as first edition according to the Dragon Deck, so it was probably that transition period.
Yeah, I thought so.
So it's probably like 87, 88.
Nah, probably second edition more, but it still works.
Right.
87, 88, that was on the Twilight years of first edition.
Right.
Twilight.
So, yes.
Not
So, Rob,
movie.
Thanks, and mind the gap.
And then, actually, I found another one. Cast of Strange Familiars, Dragon 84, page 10.
There we go. That's perfect.
Yep. Familiars with a special use, Dragon 86, page 12. I'll throw a whole in the show notes. I found like 4 or 5 different articles, so I'll put those all in the show notes. Because
Or you can head right over and download those magazines freely.
Yes. So when we give you page numbers and issue numbers, download them. There will be a test.
Yes. 3 tests, in fact. Nick, you have all 3 of them standing on his head.
And the number shall be 3.
Yes. Actually, it's going to be 42. Anyway. All right, so go to our next email from DM Scott. He is talking about converting some 1E modules from or to Pathfinder. I'm finding a very interesting idea and wondering how I can get a hold of some of these finished products, if there are any out there. I ran a game of Pathfinder, even though it was not my preferred edition, 1E all the way. Whoop, whoop. However, in my community, Pathfinder is rampant and evil. Oh, it doesn't say that. And, well, that's the group I found my way into. I'm trying to import as much old school influence into the game as possible, and I think running some 1E modules would be the perfect way. It's not that hard. We actually did an actual show on converting D20 to first and back and forth. Issue 102, I want to say.
Yeah, and it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't anything as far as the monsters. That's just using different stats. I think where it came into was like when you had like ability checks and things of that nature might get a little.
Well, he has an advantage though. As a 1E player and a Pathfinder player, he can easily just swap things in and out as he looks at the module. So
good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with Pathfinder, so
Yeah, if you go back, Volume 2, Issue 80 is when we talked about converting 3rd edition to 1st.
Okay.
So since Pathfinder has that 3rd edition base, it's really not that hard. Yeah, it's just...
I've done it plenty of times, just taking stuff from 1st edition and run with Pathfinder. It's not that hard. I enjoy Pathfinder for a point of view. It's something a little bit different once in a while, and it's not D&D. So therefore, it's legal.
Right.
Like many people have said, if 4th edition was not D&D, it'd be a really good game. Like Matt said, it's a perfectly good minis game.
It's a miniature war game, exactly.
Yeah, so I hope that helps. I mean, I've been doing that. I've converted some 1E stuff, and back and forth. I was actually converting the Pathfinder Second City, I think it was called, over 1st edition. Second Darkness it was called. Sorry about that. Second Darkness Pathfinder Path Adventures over to 1st edition because it's really good. If I ever get that done, I'll put it up as a free. I don't know if can I do that, Matt? Can I put up conversions legally?
You can put up stat blocks.
No, I can't put the story up though, right?
No, it falls under that derivative work. Depends on how much you change, and
so I could probably put up just like here's the changes. If you have this module, here are the changes to make it 1st edition. Like I put up stat blocks,
right?
Yeah,
because the mechanics, you can talk mechanics. You can't talk story.
Right.
All right. So I would say here's Second Darkness Module 1, for example, and here are all the ways to make it 1st edition, stat 1, stat 2, blah, blah, and they can just buy it and do it themselves.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just don't do anything like that for anything Palladium because they get weird about stuff like that.
Or Games Workshops, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, because apparently Games Workshop has a time machine and actually owns all prior art to the term Space Marine.
Well, they better get on the Robert Heinlein time machine then, because
yeah. Unfortunately, the way Games Workshop works, they only pick on people smaller than them. This was the company that would see what game stores would advertise in White Dwarf for like over a year, and then proceed to open up Games Workshop stores like down the block from them, and then run them out of business.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, they're a very aggressive company, to say the least.
You think?
Yeah, they throw fits if you sell their product online because you're not allowed to in their mind. You're not allowed to.
Geez.
If there's some places that do sell Games Workshop via online, but you have to actually email them in the list of stuff you want to buy. They can't list the prices or show pictures of the stuff. You just kind of have to ask, hey, do you have this? It's very weird. They want to control their stuff so much and get every dime. They don't want to get caught in that race to the bottom that competition causes.
Well, remember that whole 3D printer controversy that happened in the past year or so.
Yeah.
I mean, with that guy, he was printing out his own Space Marines and such.
Right. Which is
on a 3D printer.
Yeah. As long as you don't tell anyone else you're doing it, they won't know. But as soon as they tell, they will. However, if it was a large company doing something similar to that, they probably wouldn't touch them because they only go for battles they'll win because they basically want to scare people into compliance.
Comply.
Yes, you will obey.
Okay.
I think we beat that horse pretty dead.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, DM Scott.
Scott.
we need to get that sound effect of her screaming, Scott! Ken writes this next email. Hey guys, I love your show. I'm new to D&D, and I grew up in central Mississippi. Where was that, Missouri? No, Mississippi, yeah.
Mississippi.
Yeah. M-I-S, oh, sorry. Where it was the devil's, and where it was the devil and the forbidden, and I can't read today. And I leave and work in.
You want me to take this one?
Yeah, my tongue is twisted right
Words
now.
are hard.
Start over. Count it down.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll count it down. Okay, and 4, 3, 2. All right, next one is from Ken, and Ken writes, "Hey guys, I love your show. I'm new to D&D. I grew up in central Mississippi where it was the devil and forbidden, because that's the devil, Bobby Boucher. I live and work in New Orleans now.
You Henri.
Or Nolans. Until recently, I'd only ever read tabletop RPGs like TSR's Marvel Superheroes, Top Secret SI, etc., but never had a chance to play them. I'm older now, and the search of a hobby brought me back to RPGs, and from there, D&D. I started with the Retro Clones, forums, blogs, Appendix N material, and Clark Ashton Smith, who wasn't on Appendix N, but is better than anyone who is. I recently picked up the Dungeon Master's Guide reprint. The level of detail intimidated me as much as did not knowing where to begin. Enter the Roll for Initiative podcast. Listening to the insight and friendly banter on your show has been awesome. The episodes of science fiction, multi-classing, and Hyborian campaigns are must-listen material. You made the game accessible to me, and I appreciate that. Keep up the great work and take it light." Well, thank you, Ken. I mean, I know probably Vince and I recall back in the day when the whole D&D controversy kind of blew up, huh?
Sure, yeah, jeez.
Oh my gosh. And funny because, I grew up Roman Catholic, and my family, no problems with it at all, None whatsoever. They were just more concerned about some of the people I hung out with, but like every parent is. But you know what? They saw it was a cool pastime for me. I was getting to be around a bunch of people who liked the same thing. I was enjoying myself, and they were cool with it. So I don't know.
That whole, your uncle. No, not my uncle. Your cousin was my mom's cousin, actually. Is a priest, and he's very concerned. He's saying anybody who is a character for D&D after 5th level gets very attached to their character, and when the character dies, it's like a piece of them dying, and sometimes they go crazy.
So he did all of his research via Chick Tracks?
Yeah,
pretty much. Sounds like.
Yeah. And I was just like, no, I don't really have a problem with that because we play so many games and characters die. We just toss the sheet in the garbage and make up a new one. I don't.
Yeah.
Is what I said. She just goes, oh, okay, good.
Oh, okay.
Really, I heard a little bit more about it later on, like when I got in trouble. Like, oh, well, you're always reading those D&D devil books. You need to do this. But it was mostly just that crap or something.
Yeah. Everybody knew what, if anything, controversy breeds profits with that. So people bought more. But I thought it was interesting. He brought up like TSR's Marvel Superheroes. All that's still free online.
Yep.
Yeah, classic Marvel
Forever,
yeah, .com.
Yeah. So
I remember
all that.
I went on a camping trip and we broke out the basic set for Marvel's superhero, and the leader of the group that we had at the time was very religious. He's like, "Oh no, you're not playing any devil games in my campground." He took the thing and put it in the car, and he locked the door and wouldn't let us get in.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
Yeah, he was like, "None of that devil stuff here."
It's for the devil, Bobby Boucher.
That's when you just run off into the forest, create a fire, and just start mumbling things.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm telling all your mothers when we get home the evilness you were doing." I was like, "Give me a break."
Right. Yes, that'd be like, please tell my parents so they can tell you how silly you are.
Yes.
It's like we were playing a superhero game. It was the basic one. It was just like moving around on the map. It wasn't even much of an RPG.
Right.
Gosh.
But no, make believe and pretend is evil, no matter what Mr. Rogers says.
Like that foosball, Bobby Boucher. That for the devil.
Yeah, okay. My mama said, "Hey, Henri." Next email comes from John H. Hi guys, I only recently returned to First Edition AD&D, and I've been pouring through all of the RFI's back issues. I have played D&D back when AD books were new. I was an avid TSR fan and collected and played most of the games that were being published, and I have a subscription for years to Dragon. Then I discovered Call of Cthulhu. Yay! And that has occupied most of my adult role-playing time. Cool. But now I'm going to try to get back into AD&D. I'm only sorry that I missed the contest for the trio of the reprint books. I have an idea for a mausoleum that I would need to write up. Yeah, definitely write it up and send it in. We can take a look at it. We'll even review it probably if we have the time to review it. And we'll put it up on the website for everybody to look at if you'd like.
Sure.
I love DM Nick's enthusiasm for the game and the true from the heart opinions about the game that he brings to the podcast. Aw, Nick.
Thanks.
I also love producer Matt's input. Woohoo! Input 2. I would love to hear more of producer Matt. Matt, start speaking up a little bit more, buddy.
Okay. I shall speak more.
All right, that's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. Yeah. Go back into the producer.
Yeah.
Well, Matt was being producer for so long, so I think sometimes he forgets that he is a host on the show. So.
Yeah, it's like, because I'm sitting here, I typically will prepare the show notes as we're recording the show. So as we talk about links or things, I'm putting those into my little OneNote sheet for the show. So I'm like doing producer work simultaneously while talking at times.
Well, Nick and myself are just lounging back in the chair and doing nothing. Right, Nick?
What's that? I was lounging. What?
Yeah, I thought so. He continues, DM Vince is cool, and I get the feeling he is very happy, open, a very happy, open person, and I want to hear more of that side on the podcast. No.
We will be grumpy grognard curmudgeon, sir.
Yes. Get your dang gnolls and bugbears off my lawn. Blah.
I will be as evil and dark as the Emperor himself.
Okay, yes. Blackleaf.
Something dark side.
Something dark side, yes. Only the dark. Anyway, another podcast for that anyway. Anyhow, orcs have pig faces, and I think priests may be allowed to use edge weapons, but only a single specific type of weapon, let's say a short sword, and then specifically a specific short sword only that has been blessed by the clergy. What do you think about that, Nick?
I'm okay with that.
Oh, okay. And by blessed, I mean some kind of prayer service, not the enchant weapon thing.
Yeah, like to purify the weapon or something
right.
like that.
You baptize your sword.
There you go. In the enemy's blood.
Yes.
No. So a cleric of war might see a short sword on the battlefield, but he would only pick it up to take it back for cleansing or blessing. He wouldn't pick it up and start wielding it on the spur of the moment. I like this kind of approach because it pigeonholes the cleric to a very, very specific weapons when it comes to edge weapons, while blunt weapons inherently meet criteria for their gods. Love the podcast. Listening to this podcast has inspired me to get deeper into AD&D and to purchase the new Gygax magazine. I cannot wait for my issue 2 arrive, as Matt squeaks again.
Yes, my chair's making a cameo appearance in this show.
Yeah, you need to get some oil for that, boy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, John H. We appreciate the comments and your house rules, of course, on the edge weapons, because we all know it's a house rule, not a permanent rule.
Yeah.
And
and now I'm thinking, what if you worship the god of war who forbidden blunt weapons?
That would be awesome.
Yes, you get your sharp pointies, but if you're fighting skeletons, you have to fight them with your sword. You cannot pick up a club.
Use the flat of the blade.
Nope. That's a blunt weapon. You must hack through them at half damage.
Okay, I turn them instead. Ha-ha!
Yes. Good boy.
Well, he cuts off your powers. You can't turn them there.
Right.
Oh, you're just being a jerk DM now. I'm going to walk away from the table.
Oh, jeez. Well, now that we're Nicholas...
He has the evil DM handle on Twitter for a reason.
That is correct, sir.
That's true.
Nick, you want to grab the last letter since I can't read anymore?
Sure. Okay. Our last letter from Montana S. And Montana S writes, "Hey, RFI gang, congratulations on breaking 100 episodes. I have 2 quick questions for you guys. 1, How do you handle a large group of players
Kill them
with whip and chair? I keep an open door to players of all levels of experience and gaming backgrounds, even if they can only attend one session or only attend once a month play in my weekly group. So lucky you have a weekly group. This has given me an average of about 6 to 9 regular players. And for a holiday weekend where some high school buddies are home, the attendance can rise high as 14 plus players. Any tips for helping run a great game where everyone can participate? Oh, wow. Let's get back to that.
Go ahead.
Number 2, weapon damage versus large. I think it's a cool rule, but I can't quite wrap my head around it. I cannot justify using a rule I cannot understand. So, do you guys use it, and what's the logic behind it when you do it? If a longsword leaves a D12 size hole in an ogre, shouldn't it leave a larger hole in a pig-faced orc by comparison? Also, how do other weapons like battle axes ever get picked up by the fighter if a longsword would end up being more versatile? Also, you should cover ogres sometime soon. They're great monsters. I'd love to hear you talk about them. Thanks for your input.
Okay. So the first question, that's kind of a hard one. It all really depends on the level of experience of the Dungeon Master, of course. But what I've seen is, and I've done this before too myself, is have more than one DM.
Yeah.
It can be kind of boring for the second DM, but if you have that large of a group and you really want to play, this might be your only answer. Mm-hmm. You can have the main DM running the story, and you can have him know the story, what's going on, and have the secondary DM run NPCs as well as keep things organized by going around the table to find out what people are doing. Maybe if the group splits up, he can take the separate group in a different direction. Mm-hmm. Things like that. Or I've seen that done at conventions a lot of times.
Right. Yeah.
I just recall when I was first playing back in the early mid-'80s, there was one DM, I wish I remember his name, but everybody, and I mean everybody, wanted to get in on his game.
Sounds like Joe.
You know, and you know what it was? He was so, and he would cut it off like at maybe 12, 13 people, you know.
That's it?
Everybody wanted to get in. But the thing was, his style was he was, one, very energetic. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
2, he vocalized a lot. He projected his voice quite a bit.
So he sang?
Well, he was able to grab everybody's attention around that table.
It was a
lot of times it was at a game store there was like a gaming club of all different types, and he had to be a little bit loud so everybody could hear.
Right. As much as a public performance as anything at that point. You have to be more dynamic. You just can't be monotone when trying to engage that many people.
Yeah, and the third thing, he stood up. Mm-hmm. He was not behind the screen. So those were, I think, the 3 big things for him. And you know what? With a large group, even at home, even with my regular group, I do all 3 of those things. I try to be as energetic as possible. I tried to project my voice, try to orate as best as I can. And I stand. I'm standing up. I want to have everybody who could see me, hear what's going on. I could grab everybody's attention, and that way everybody's pulled into it. Everybody is participating, not only with me but with each other. Then,
right.
So I think those are 3 good tips that you can try to get everybody to participate.
Yeah.
So again, oration, be energetic, and seriously stand up.
Right.
Stand and don't be behind that screen.
Right. Yes, standing actually will give you more energy. It actually makes you more lively. You're more likely to express what you're getting across with more emotion when you are standing as opposed to sitting. Mm-hmm. Also, something I think to consider is don't get hung up on minute details of the rules, because that will bring your game to a screeching halt for a lot more people when they have to wait while you're trying to adjudicate one rule for one person.
Yep.
You'll want to play a little looser with the rules just to keep the game flowing, because you're not just trying to entertain 2 or 3 people. You have 10 to 14 in some cases. So at that point, it becomes more about the role-playing and the storytelling than the hard mechanics, just to keep the game moving, because not everyone's going to be interested in the exact wording of paragraph 2 on page 34 of the DMG.
Right. Because I've seen it go the other way, where like I was at a few years ago at Origins, someone was running a tournament. And this was just a group of 6 people, but he got caught up in the minutia of the rules. He was behind the screen, and you could barely hear the man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's the DM's fault. I mean, I've sat down and not gotten up and still engaged players and still.
Yeah, but you could be easily heard, and you were energetic, I'm sure.
Yeah, and people don't have a problem with it. I guess it all depends on the style of the person. So
right.
How natural
but with a large group, that will help.
Right. It comes down to how natural is public speaking, because at that point it's evolved past a group, just talking with a group of people, to more of a public speaking.
All right, well, let's go on to the second question here before we ramble on about this, because we can go on it for days upon hours and weeks. I know.
Weapon damage versus large, I've never had a problem with it. Okay, you guys fill in on that one, because I got nothing on that. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know what. I understand his thinking behind it. Like, well, why does it do more damage to a larger creature? And if it's going to cause the same size hole in the larger creature, why wouldn't it do the same amount of damage?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily cause the same size hole. It would cause a larger hole because you're hitting them with. They're larger, therefore you can hit with more of the blade. It's the difference between if you swing a sword at me or swing a sword at a tree trunk. What's going to make more have more contact with the blade? The tree trunk.
Hopefully you. No, sorry.
Yeah. Well, no, it would just.
Then.
Yeah.
Well, that glass that you broke into your arm, that has to beg to differ, Matt. No,
yeah. I actually. Yeah.
No, yeah, but you're right, Matt. The larger the target, the more easier it is to hit with all of the sword as compared to some of the swords. So
right.
That's why you're doing more damage. That's at least how we think about that.
I just never thought about it. I thought, okay, there must be a reason behind it, and I just kind of went with it.
And then
I guess I just don't try to overcomplicate it.
And then some
myself.
weapons, they go down in effectiveness against large.
Yeah, pole arms are notorious for that.
Right.
I believe they go down in damage for the larger creatures.
Right. So I'm sure there's actually, if we really sat down and examined all the weapons, there's probably a good logical explanation as to why some are more effective against others. Because at that point, pole arm is nothing more than a toothpick against a giant. So,
right. I mean, like I'm looking at in the player's handbook here, the like they was talking about what where is it? Like the Beck to Corbin, that's a pole arm. Mm-hmm. Small to medium, it does 1 to 8. Large does a D6. While a Ranzur does a 2 to 8, small to medium, 2 to 8 to large, does the same damage.
Mm-hmm.
So, why? It's just the design of the weapon, and they probably thought, okay, this weapon probably does more damage than the other, or the same. A glaive, on the other hand, does 1 to 6 to small to medium, D10 to a large. So it does more to a large. So, I don't know.
All right, well, cool. I hope that answers the question. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that.
And but, has anybody actually used a Bohemian ear spoon?
No.
Okay. Just curious.
So as far as the last part of this email, we should cover ogres sometime. That'd be kind of a cool episode to do ogres on.
Yeah. And all the different variants?
I wonder if I think there was a roll aids done on that, wasn't there?
Roll aids?
I think I saw roll aids on maybe giants or larger creatures. I can't remember. I'll have to look through my collection of roll aids. I mean, I'm not a roll aid expert, but I could have sworn there was one.
Let's see here.
And they are great monsters, and they're really interesting to use. A lot of people forget about them. And to wrap up the show this week, if you'd like to give us a call, rfistaff@gmail.com. Well, it's not going to call us at RFI Staff, but you can call us.
You can call us on the hotline, though.
570-865-4210, the hotline. Or you can go to facebook.com/RFI Podcast and leave us some feedback. Don't forget to go to rfipodcast.com and vote on our poll who you'd like to request an interview from. And always comment on there. Tell your friends. You can follow us on Twitter, RFI Podcast. What's it go? At
RFI Podcast.
Yeah, I couldn't figure if it was at or Twitter.
Yeah, we have Twitter. We're all over the place.
Yeah.
That's right. We're not on Google Plus though, because I don't really spend much time on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that too. And if you're interested in being a guest host on the podcast, we would love to have some guest hosts here. And because I know a lot of people are always like, "Oh, I'd like to come on the show." Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. If you have a good connection, a headset on Skype, we can talk about it. Just give us a shout out to rfistaff@gmail.com and let us know your interest, and we'll talk to you about it. So give us a shout.
Yeah.
If you're a by the book person, then you can come on the podcast and tell us how we're doing everything wrong, and have your revenge. No, I'm kidding. Evilly like that. So yeah, that's been I guess Volume 3, issue number 108, and we'll be back next week with some really cool stuff.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
was really anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Keep it original, keep it old school. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hey, everyone.
Roll for initiative.